Exclusive new information on a story Western Mass News has been following involving the disappearance and the death of Achim Bailey. He was last seen leaving Samuel's Bar in Springfield. I'm Dave Matson.
And I'm Beth Ward. In the months since, bar safety has been a top concern for unrelated reasons. This summer, Springfield Mayor Dominic Sarno called for the shutdown of Club Aquarius following a shooting nearby there.
Well, that owner is now facing the License Commission, and it has many asking why Samuels hasn't had a hearing following the disappearance of Achim.
Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos has been working for weeks to get answers from the city. Joins us now on James, what you found.
Yeah, well, Dave and Beth, the community has rallied around Achim Bailey's disappearance, and many want to know what happened, how it could have been prevented, and if anyone is going to be held accountable. That's why we took those concerns to the city's licensing commission. These are some of the last recorded steps of Achim Bailey from the early morning hours of January 13th. What we know leading up to this point, Achim was asked to leave Samuels at the Basketball Hall of Fame after allegedly flirting inappropriately with a woman at the bar. Achim would later be reported missing, all while his family offered thousands of dollars in reward money for his safe return home. His phone was found 12 days later at the location it was last pinged, but that was the only lead until his body was found in the Connecticut River in Longmeadow 2 months after his disappearance. The question remains, did Samuels follow their protocol in Achim's case? To get answers, Western Mass News obtained the bar security plan. To ensure safety of patrons, several bars, including Samuels, submit a security plan to the city detailing how they will handle different situations. In theirs, it says all security footage recorded on the security cameras will be retained for a period of 30 days. The owner of Samuels tells me that this did not happen the night Achim was there because the camera system's DVR was not working because of a maintenance issue at the Hall of Fame months earlier. Colebrook, the property management company of the Hall of Fame, never returned our calls to confirm that. Now, per Samuel's security plan, it says patrons whose behavior may jeopardize their own safety or the safety of others should be addressed and asked to cease whatever seems to be problematic. However, the owner of Samuels tells us after a woman accused him of flirting inappropriately, he was not warned and instead was asked to leave immediately because it was 20 minutes until closing. But their security plan says never remove a person who is too intoxicated to drive, and they should give the subject the opportunity to get a ride from a friend, call a cab, or call an Uber. The owner tells us that this did not happen because he says Achim did not appear to be a danger to himself. Western Mass News has also obtained new documents that detail the police investigation into Achim's disappearance. According to Officer Barry Delamarter with the Strategic Impact Unit, the bouncer that kicked him out told police Achim was not stumbling or unsteady on his feet and walked out on his own without incident. But in this video we showed you back in February, Achim's parents say they believe their son was intoxicated. The plan also says attempt to locate their friends to arrange transportation, but the owner of Samuels tells us that this did not happen because security figured his friends would be joining him outside when the bar was set to close minutes after he was kicked out. According to the Baileys, Achim was alone at the bar at that point. The family member he had arrived with had left shortly after midnight. And under their removal protocol, it says if the subject is cooperative, assign a member of the security team to wait with them just outside. The owner of Samuels confirms that that also did not happen. It is worth noting it was 13 degrees the night Achim went missing. Lastly, their security plan says Samuels would file an incident report if a subject is dismissed for any reason. The plan says incident reports must contain facts only in bulleted format coinciding to the timeline of the observations. But the owner tells Western Mass News that since Achim left without protest, it was a busy night, so no report was filed. So we asked Alicia Days, the director of licensing in the city of Springfield, what happens when a bar doesn't abide by their security plan.
Most of the time, licensees will say, I violated. And what will you give me as a result of it? Is it a letter of warning? Will you be suspended? Will I be suspended? Exactly what will happen as a result of this violation?
She says in the case of Samuels, that has not happened. According to Officer Delamarter's report, based on a review of eyewitness accounts, video footage obtained in the area, and the debit card activity for Mr. Bailey's debit card, there is not sufficient evidence to prove over-service. With that said, what's next for Samuels?
The reality is this, that the public sees only certain pieces of what's happening, right? There's a lot of things that are transpiring that's not in the public view. It doesn't mean we're not concerned. It doesn't mean that we're not investigating, but some incidents take longer than others.
We asked the question that many in the community want answered.
At this time, no hearing has been held for Samuels, correct?
That's correct.
Are there any plans in the near future at this point for their own to be held?
If the investigation that we're conducting warrants a hearing, then one will be held at that time.
Now, I should note that we did reach out to Mayor Sarno's office for comment on this story. However, they told me that all questions must go through Alicia Days. She tells us that just like Aquarius, Samuels has an entertainment license, which Mayor Sarno oversees. The reason Aquarius had a hearing regarding theirs is because the mayor called on one to happen. But like you heard there at the end, Alicia confirms that no hearing has been called yet for Samuels. Coming up at 6, you can be the judge on whether or not you believe Achim was intoxicated. We have newly released video of Achim minutes after he was kicked out of Samuels that you will only see here on Western Mass News. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
We begin with a Western Mass News exclusive. Close to 7 months since the day Achim Bailey first went missing after a night out in Springfield, we now have new video from the moments after he was kicked out of Samuels. I'm Dave Mattson.
And I'm Beth Ward. Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos has been working for months to get answers about his disappearance. James joins us now with this exclusive video. James.
Well, Dave, Beth, with the amount of public interest in Achim's case, Western Mass News has not stopped looking for answers as to what happened to him the night he went missing. At 4 and 5, we told you about Samuel's security plan and what was supposed to happen the night Achim was kicked out. Now, for the first time, we see a critical sequence of video that could offer new clarity. The night of January 12th, the security cameras at Samuels at the Basketball Hall of Fame were not working. The owner telling us because of a maintenance issue months prior, the system's DVR wasn't actually recording the video. Alicia Days, the city's licensing director, says it raises concerns that Samuel's security cameras weren't working the night Achim Bailey went missing. She tells Western Mass News that she should have been notified the day their cameras stopped working, but she never was.
Our primary concern is public safety, right? We want people to be able to go out to these establishments and have a good time, but we also want them to be safe while they're there. We also want them to be safe once they leave whatever establishment, and so they're not out drunk driving or anything that would impede public safety.
Police were able to see Achim thanks to video recorded at the Basketball Hall of Fame, which is owned by Colebrook, the management group of the property. Western Mass News reached out repeatedly to Colebrook requesting their video, but they never responded. With the missing persons case officially closed after Achim's body was found in the Connecticut River on March 15th, we submitted a public records request. This is exclusive video obtained by Western Mass News where you can see Achim leaving Samuels at 1:40 in the morning. Achim can be seen pacing around the parking lot, not interacting with anyone. It is worth noting that it was 13 degrees the night he went missing. At about 1:41, Achim walks over by a bush and, facing away from it, urinates in the parking lot. We have blurred this video. After that, he begins to walk back over to the entrance of Samuels. There, he is seen bumping heads with someone who was leaving. They interacted briefly and the person leaves, but as you can see, Achim stays behind holding his head for a few seconds. Achim then continues to walk around the parking lot. It is worth noting that at no point does he ever take out his phone. At about 1:46, he walks out of frame as he approaches the gate that separates the parking lot and the railroad tracks. 2 minutes later, he appears back into frame, again walking towards the entrance of Samuels. Almost 10 minutes after he was first spotted leaving Samuels at 1:49, he begins to leave the property and begin his walk down Hall of Fame Avenue. He would not be spotted again until about 1:52 in this video walking near LA Fitness and then a final time in a nearby parking lot. Western Mass News has obtained new details about the investigation via public records request. Written by Officer Delamarter with the department's Strategic Impact Unit, he says the footage does not reveal any clear evidence of intoxication. But in past interviews with Achim's parents and friends who viewed the video of Achim walking along Hall of Fame Avenue, they say they believe he was intoxicated.
He was. On the camera, you see him, he was really staggering out there.
Pretty
They should
heartbreaking.
have helped him.
Yeah. I don't even try to look at it anymore. I just
It's very
can't really
heartbreaking.
go.
They should have helped him.
According to Officer Delamarter's report, the bouncer who kicked him out told police Achim was not stumbling or unsteady on his feet and walked out on his own without incident. He went on to say, based on a review of eyewitness accounts, video footage obtained in the area, and the debit card activity from Mr. Bailey's debit card, there is not sufficient evidence to prove overservice. With different opinions surrounding Achim's condition when he was asked to leave Samuels, you can be the judge. Again, it is worth repeating that Alicia Days, the director of licensing for the city, tells us that no hearing has been held or is scheduled for Samuels. All the video you just saw has been reviewed by the Baileys. They weren't available for an interview today, but Mrs. Bailey told me over the phone this morning that these last few months have been extremely difficult for them as they search for answers and closure. She tells me for now, all they can do is look at his pictures and talk to him as if he's still home. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
We begin tonight with breaking news regarding a story Western Mass News brought you exclusively on Friday involving the disappearance and death of Achim Bailey. I'm Chris Pisano. Springfield's mayor is now speaking out following our reports. And Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos joins us now live with more on what the mayor is saying, James.
Yeah, Chris, well, the mayor is now actually calling for a hearing to take place following our investigation. He told me over the phone that just like everyone else in the community, it was his first time seeing video of Achim right after he was kicked out of Samuels. Let's remind you of our findings. We submitted a public records request for a Samuels security plan, which is on file with the city of Springfield. Western Mass News obtained the plan and found it was not followed in the early morning hours of January 13th when Achim was kicked out of the bar for allegedly flirting inappropriately with a woman. To be specific, Samuels didn't have working cameras, they didn't file an incident report, and Achim was not offered transportation home, just to name a few of the requirements detailed in the security plan. A police report we obtained says Achim did not show signs of intoxication. So we submitted a public records request for the video from the Hall of Fame that showed Achim urinating in the parking lot, pacing around, and bumping heads with someone. Samuels has not had a hearing with the Board of License Commission, angering many in the community as they say Mayor Sarno was quick to call on one for Aquarius. Is now telling Western Mass News in a statement that he is good friends with Achim's uncle and that while Achim's death is indeed a tragedy, it was not an act of violence. It is irresponsible to compare it to an officer being shot outside an establishment, followed by a patron being stabbed outside the same establishment 2 weeks later. He went on to say, with that said, in the new information and video now brought to my attention, I have requested Licensing Director Attorney Alicia Days to hold a hearing to review exit procedures of when a patron has been requested to leave an establishment. And I actually just got off the phone with Mr. Bailey moments ago, and he said that the video of Achim outside of Samuels the night he disappeared is very tough for him to watch and brings back difficult memories. But as upsetting as it is, he says he won't stop looking for information about what happened to Achim. To watch the full reports that aired on Friday, you can see them on our website, westernmassnews.com. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
We begin this evening with a story you will only see on Western Mass News. Exclusive new developments as we continue to get answers following the death of Achim Bailey. Good evening. Good to have you with us on Western Mass News at 6. I'm Beth Ward.
And I'm Chris Pisano. The Springfield bar where Achim was last seen the night he went missing was the subject of a hearing today. And that hearing was a result of an investigation by Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos, who joins us now live with more on what was discussed today. James?
Well, Chris and Beth, after being canceled twice, the hearing before the city's licensing commission took place this afternoon. It has been close to 9 months since Achim first went missing after a night at Samuels in downtown Springfield, but several questions remain about what happened to him right before he went missing and leading up to the discovery of his body in the Connecticut River in March. We know that Achim was asked to leave Samuels after allegedly flirting inappropriately with a woman. Today's hearing focused on Samuels' entertainment license, not their liquor license. Let's remind you of our investigation. This summer, Western Mass News submitted a public records request for Samuel's security plan. Our investigation uncovered that the bar did not follow several aspects of their plan, including that Achim should have received a warning prior to being removed. Also, according to the security plan, people who are too intoxicated to drive should not be asked to leave. And if a person is asked to leave, security should wait with that person until transportation arrives. Those are just a few of the things that should have happened. However, the owner told Western Mass News shortly after Achim's disappearance that security said Achim showed no signs of intoxication. That was also documented in a police report written by Officer Barry Delamarter with the Springfield Police Department. Per Samuel's security plan, the bar's security cameras should have been working, but they weren't. At Tuesday's hearing, that is what the discussion was centered around. Bar owner Eddie Grimaldi clarified that when looking for security footage of an incident on December 23rd, they noticed that their cameras weren't actually recording. Grimaldi says that the License Commission was notified of this on January 9th, 4 days before Achim went missing. New cameras were installed the third week of January. Officer Barry Delamarter, who serves as the liaison between the License Commission and the police department, says because their cameras weren't recording, they relied on video from the Hall of Fame's cameras for the investigation into his disappearance. Grimaldi says that as a tenant at the Hall of Fame, those cameras are something they pay for. And he adds the cameras inside the bar, if they were recording, are 12 years old and not the best quality compared to the Hall of Fame's cameras. It is worth noting that video of Achim leaving the Hall of Fame was shown very briefly during the hearing. Officer Delamarter was not questioned about why he wrote in his report that Achim showed no clear signs of intoxication. Now, during today's hearing, we also learned that the Springfield License Commission reviewed this case twice now to see if they will face consequences on their liquor license, once in May and another time in August, and both times they voted unanimously not to take any action against Samuels. Now, as for today's hearing, Mayor Sarno told us in a statement back in August that this hearing was going to be to review exit procedures when a patron has been requested to leave an establishment. That, however, was not discussed at today's hearing. I reached out to the mayor's office to ask why that wasn't touched upon, but they directed my question to attorney Alicia Days, who has not responded at this time. Mrs. Bailey was at today's hearing, and she tells me she doesn't have any animosity towards anyone. She just wants to make sure that steps are taken to hold bars accountable so that no other family has to experience what they have. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
Now a follow-up on a story that Western Mass News has been following for months. The city of Springfield is taking more action following our investigation on the disappearance and death of Achim Bailey.
Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos joins us live from outside City Hall to explain. James?
Chris and Jordan, the city's licensing director, is now calling for another hearing to take place for Samuels. That's the bar that Achim was kicked out of before he went missing earlier this year. This is a result of Western Mass News continuing to ask questions surrounding his disappearance. Now, you may remember that this summer we did an investigation that looked into the bar's security plan and how it was not followed the night that Achim went missing. As a result, the mayor called for a hearing to take place regarding their entertainment license, which took place last week. The License Commission already voted unanimously twice not to take any action against the bar's liquor license. The mayor told us in August that this hearing would be held to look into the bar's exit procedures. However, during that hearing last week, the only thing discussed was why the cameras at the bar weren't working when Achim went missing. We asked the mayor's office why the exit procedures weren't discussed, and they directed our question to licensing director Alicia Days. Days is now telling us today that the hearing will be reopened so additional evidence can be presented. Meanwhile, Mayor Sarno tells me yesterday that it is still his intention to look into the bar's exit procedures. However, no date has yet been set for that new hearing. I'm live in Springfield. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
We begin with a story you will only see on Western Mass News. We continue our exclusive reporting on the disappearance and death of Achim Bailey, the Springfield man who went missing after a night at Samuel's Bar in the city earlier this year. Thank you for joining us at Western Mass News. I'm Beth Ward.
And I'm Chris Pisano. A hearing was held today at City Hall, called as a result of reporting by our own Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos, looking into whether the bar's security plan was followed the night Achim went missing. And James, you were at the meeting today, so what was discussed there?
Chris and Beth, I was. Today, the topic of discussion were these documents, the bar security plan, but the bigger question they wanted to get answered: was Achim Bailey intoxicated when he was kicked out of Samuel's in January? The Liquor Commission already voted unanimously twice not to take any action against the bar, but at stake today is their entertainment license. Today, we heard from witnesses who were at the bar and several others. For the second time, the owner of Samuel's, Eddie Grimaldi, faced the License Commission, this time with additional witnesses. At the first hearing last month, they were questioned about why the bar's cameras weren't working. Those were fixed about 2 weeks after Achim's disappearance. But with no video of what happened inside the bar, there were questions remaining about what happened before Achim was asked to leave when he allegedly flirted inappropriately with a woman. Today we learned.
Originally, I believe the bouncer stated it was one female. When I made contact with him again, over the summer, he told me it was 2 to 3 females who had accused Achim of inappropriately touching them.
Officer Barry Delamarter works with the Springfield Police Department's Strategic Impact Unit and is the liaison between police and the License Commission.
Did you ask him specifically if Mr. Bailey appeared intoxicated?
I did. He said he did not appear intoxicated. He wasn't stumbling. He wasn't unsteady on his feet. His recollection was he didn't have a conversation with him.
On Wednesday, we heard from the 2 Springfield police officers who were working on duty inside Samuel's that night.
What did you observe about Mr. Bailey? Did you make any observations about his demeanor?
No, he was walking fine. He was walking up with the bouncer.
Okay. Did he appear intoxicated to you?
No.
Okay.
Officer Edwin Torres, also working inside the bar that night, did not witness Achim being asked to leave, but says historically, Samuels has handled the removal of intoxicated customers in a responsible manner.
If someone is intoxicated, how does the staff handle that?
It has happened before, and it's handled very good. The person is not allowed to leave by themselves, have to be with someone, or we'll call them a cab or something to that extent. But we don't just let people that are intoxicated just walk away.
But we know Achim was not called a cab because, according to Samuel's staff, he didn't appear intoxicated.
We don't conduct field sobriety tests, with each person as they leave. We use common sense and experience and training to determine that. Owner
Eddie Grimaldi telling the city that all of his bouncers are tip certified and know how to identify an intoxicated person. As for his security plan, Grimaldi says he wrote it himself because he's worried about his business's liability and public safety after someone leaves his establishment. When asked about why he didn't file an incident report as required in their security plan, Grimaldi says,
There was one customer complaining about another customer. If it had happened 2 hours earlier, the bouncer might have just told him, just cut it out. And that would have been the end of it. But it was the end of the night. So he was just told simply, look, buddy, it's time to go. It didn't rise to the occasion of an incident. There would be nothing to write.
Officer Delamarter backing up Grimaldi, saying it wouldn't have made a difference.
The second report was actually in conjunction with and reviewed by Captain Duda, who is the head of the Major Crimes Unit and oversaw the missing person investigation. He was quite clear that the fact that an incident report wasn't done had no impact on this investigation. They were still able to gather video, get statements from people, and there was nothing that an incident report could have added to help them.
Delamarter also noted how in Samuel's security plan, nowhere does it say in it that they are required to provide any video from inside the bar to police or even to the city. Coming up at 6, we continue our exclusive coverage with the piece of evidence that has many people frustrated, video of Achim after he was kicked out of Samuel's in the parking lot. We get answers from those who work at the bar to get their take on what they believe Achim's condition was after watching that video. We also ask the officer who wrote the police report what he thinks. James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
We continue our exclusive reporting on the disappearance and death of Achim Bailey, the Springfield man who went missing after a night out at Samuel's earlier in the year. Today, the bar's owner faced Springfield's License Commission for a second time. This is in direct response to efforts by our Western Mass News reporter James Villalobos to dig deeper and get answers about whether the bar's security plan was followed the night Achim went missing.
This is exclusive video of Achim Bailey in the early morning hours of January 13th, the day he went missing. Just to be specific, it was about 1:40 a.m., just before the bar was set to close. We know he was asked to leave after allegedly flirting inappropriately with a woman, which today we learned was multiple women according to the bouncer that night.
Did you ask him specifically if Mr. Bailey appeared intoxicated?
I did. He said he did not appear intoxicated. He wasn't stumbling. He wasn't unsteady on his feet. His recollection was he didn't have a conversation with him.
That's Officer Barry Delamarter, who works as a liaison between the Springfield Police Department and the License Commission. But because there were no cameras working inside of Samuel's the night he disappeared, there's no video of him before he got kicked out. Delamarter testified during the hearing that even if there was, nowhere in Samuel's security plan does it say that they're obligated to provide video to the city or police. But Western Mass News does have video of Achim leaving the bar, which we received through a public records request. With Achim's parents sitting behind him, the city attorney asked the owner of Samuel's whether or not he believed Achim appeared intoxicated in that video.
He's actually on video for close to a minute, and there's portions of that where I did see the missteps, and there's portions of it where he's walking in a perfectly straight line for a very long time. There's not enough information in that video to tell me how he arrived at whatever condition he happened to be in or not. There's not enough context. You have a man standing alone outside who at one point seems to step backwards.
Referring to our reports, he alleges that Western Mass News, quote, cherry-picked which video to show. However, after our investigation aired this summer, we did put the full surveillance video on our website. Melissa Vino, the liquor manager at Samuel's, says she's certified to identify customers who are intoxicated. And she saw Achim at the bar before he went missing.
Does he appear intoxicated to you? in these videos?
I mean, a one stumble here and there, you can't really base to say if someone's intoxicated.
Both Grimaldi and Vino say they probably would have taken different steps after watching the video.
Based on your years of experience in this industry, if you observed an individual exhibiting that same behavior that you saw in the video inside the club, would you determine that he was intoxicated or make a further inquiry?
I would probably intervene and to determine further.
Maybe would have observed him a little bit longer and then base it on that.
As we reported over the summer, Officer Delamarter wrote in his report that after reviewing surveillance video of Achim, there was no clear evidence of intoxication. At today's hearing, he said,
there were, I would say, momentary lapses in his balance where he appeared to be unsteady on his feet. But overall, the majority of the time, he appears to be walking normal. There's no, he doesn't fall down. There's just a couple of instances where he appears to lose his balance.
With many Western Mass News viewers sharing concerns about his report, we tried to get answers. Officer Delamarter, some people have some concerns in the public that you said no clear evidence of intoxication. Do you have any comment?
Not to you, James, no.
You just said during that hearing that he was off balance. Does that seem to you a sign of intoxication?
James, I have no comment for you. Read the whole report. How about that? Don't take one line out of context.
James Villalobos, Western Mass News.
The Baileys were at the hearing, and they tell us they're thankful that the hearing did happen, but that it's unfortunate the video of Achim leaving the bar wasn't shown. Now that the hearing has happened, licensing director Alicia Days tells us she'll review the findings from today. Mayor Sarno ultimately makes the decision on whether or not to reprimand Samuels when it comes to their entertainment license.